Hey guys, want to bring you another YouTube video. So this is kind of new topic and new thing. We're going to try to see if there's interest or buzz, especially wanted to see again. Usually I don't put out any political or anything. It's more of especially with the state of we don't know who the president is. Again, it's more of trying to understand. Hopefully, we could talk more. I kind of miss those days where I could talk to certain people about certain things on how people view, um, and try to get a better understanding instead of like people being divided in that sense, being upset. Again, whoever wins to me, like I said, for this is what I guess I want to touch more base on. And again, this is just more of a layout. Um, like that last video I just put out, it's more kind of like guideline, and a channel update was like, I just want to see where it takes us if this is something people are more interested. Um, Again, I usually do more sports. I do different topics. I still usually try to stick where it's non-biased. I want to give an equal, fair view because I don't think the media does that. So that's one thing. Um, like I said, there's not really one specific to say whose fault. I think it's more of where you have to kind of do the research on where things stands, what's important to you. Hopefully, everybody did have a chance to vote, and that's where again you may prefer someone that's going to be more one-sided, or on either the left or right, or like I said, I'm trying to bring more of the middle ground and be able to try to express, and maybe have people not like put each other down or anything like that. It's more like try and be constructive and bring where we could figure out where differences are. We could agree to disagree. I prefer that if that's something that it's just more to be able to share opinions and stuff like that on see where you guys stand. I think it's something where I think just like sports, I would say it's just like sports, right? Um, yeah, I know there's like parents or fans that aren't going to ever be happy with the outcome. Definitely understand that. Just like as my kids are learning about sports, I try and teach them about sportsmanship. That things are going to, you can't always win. And if you don't win, sure, you want it to be as fair as possible. So that's where I want to kind of touch on. If so, a couple of things is like, um, this was actually the biggest turnout, voting wise. They said was that I think over 120 years. This is the biggest turnout voting wise. So obviously it shows how big and important this was. Um, Now the problem is, yes, we had a pandemic, so you're going to have more people that sent out mail out ballots, which is fine. Now there should have been a system, I think, because there's so much chaos going on, and especially different states. So just imagine, I usually like to stay up on election day or night just to find out who's going to win. I remember in 2000, kind of tells you my age, but I didn't get to vote for that. I just find it, like I said, it's to me like a sport. You want to know if whoever you vote for or who you were cheering for was going to be the winner tonight. So I again, that was like my first one that I could learn about politics and all that, and so I remember for the first election, it's like, wow, is this like every election that you don't find out voter or the winner that night? And so I just remember it was a long, drawn out process because of one state, Florida. So in the end, you could look that up on what obviously we know what happened. Bush won, but I meant like the process. It took a lot longer than expected to find out who was the winner. Um, and I don't know if it's going to be like that because there's so many close races. There was so much potential of mistakes in that sense, where if you were in Florida, they had the Chad, where if you didn't punch the hole right or something like that. What's ironic is that, again, that's where you could use it as a learning experience because Florida actually now was one of the fastest ones to report and get the results. So hopefully, like I said, whatever happens with this, that we don't ever have this happen again, where we could have a faster process count wise. Now, I don't know if it's because, I guess, usually you could have felt strongly about any candidate. And just to give you a guideline, like, I voted for actually all three parties before, so you can't say I'm really one sided. Again, I'm more of like where the policies lies. I'm more important on where the policies are. Try and learn where each candidate stands. If it lines with my ideology or what I think is great for the country. Again, I believe in democracy. That's why, as long, one of my old saying is like, can't really have a discussion if you didn't really vote. If you didn't even go and talk, or because every American has that civic right or that uh, option to be able to voice your opinion that way. So if you didn't vote, it's kind of hard to say, especially if you're the one that you thought was could have won. That's why it's another thing I would say people probably learned this time around. Or, like I said, the media could have probably got what they wanted on trying to tell the public not to go because they could have been like, well, Biden is up 10 points at this state, so you don't really have to go. So, because playing devil's advocate, like I said, if you're a Trump supporter, you're going to be like, wow, up 10 points. I don't know if my one vote's going to count. Now, if it was reversed and said, like California, wow, Biden is up, is projected to win, or actually, let me use another good state to reverse it. Another one I would say that could be a non-swing state for, I would say, like a good one could be maybe a Texas or somewhere in the South, right? You could be like, well, you know what? Maybe because this state's always been like a good example. Actually, I'll use Arizona, right? If you believed that Arizona was always going to be Republican, and your mentality was like, well, you know what? The media said it's always been Republican. I'm not going to go out and vote. Well, you saw how close this one is. So that's where I don't know if that's one thing you could take away from it. It's like maybe they wanted to get these polls way off again, so that way you might have Trump supporters that says, you know what, I'm not going to show up. But obviously, some of them did show up. But I think both sides really showed up really well. That's the highest turnout again. So credit there. Now, like Fox News, they definitely had it wrong where they called Arizona pretty early on Tuesday night. So that was pretty. It's amazing, like, in almost a given fact, like, Fox News is usually the last 4 years been conservative. If you tune in CNN, MSNBC, all the other stations, they've been leaning more on the left. So it's like, well, you could count on the last 4 years that Fox News was more geared towards Trump, right? If you're a Trump supporter, but you're like if you dislike Trump and more on the left, you're going to tune in on the other networks. So it's kind of funny that it's almost like there's Fox News is swinging to the other side. So, and because you had those Trump supporters kind of bashing or being really upset what happened, and I don't blame them because like I think the media should definitely need to get it right, or because you're passing misinformation in that sense. I've actually kind of stopped watching more of the news and try to do my own research. Um, and if I do watch the news, then like I said, I try to now watch a little bit of everybody's perspective just to see where they stand, or avoid the opinions. I rather try to stick to facts. Again, sometimes CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, even Newsmax. Like I said, just depends what type of interview they have, and you could tell. Um, so again, I prefer to listen to everyone and get their opinions that way because usually you're going to have, again, you're going to want to get as much information in that sense. And I think that's why, which I that night CNN was one of the slowest I think to report. Newsmax was one of the fastest, but they never called Arizona. I think Fox News was trying to be one of the fastest. So I guess this day and age, unless you think it's better to try to get it as the fastest to report it, but even though it might be wrong. So uh, that was one that I thought was kind of interesting. Then I think there was one pollster at the Telfluffer group. Um, he's been on a couple shows, but he said he was right. I think he was like only one that was right about 2016, calling Trump that was going to be the winner. And I think he was like the only one that was close to the margins. So I think he's probably going to be one of the few ones that is going to come out really good out of this because he was the closest on all boards. I think he was close on the Senate race too. And he was close on President Trump, like on the different states. So I think overall you're going to have uh, where I don't know. Like I said, do you trust the media at this point after they got two elections wrong, pretty off? And then also, do you trust the pollsters? Like I said, there's only one pollster I kind of believe right now because he even called it beforehand and was one of the few that said he thought Trump could win, but it's going to be by a very small margin. So, and he's kind of right. It's very tight. Nobody else called it where it was going to be tight, because everybody else seemed like they were either 5 to 10 points above. So, if you believe that, like I said, you could either be on the Biden camp and thought, well, you know what, my vote's not going to count because that's a huge margin to win, 5 to 10 points. Well, my vote definitely count. Like when I lived in California, if I wanted to vote someone else as a different candidate, I could have been like, you know what, I don't really need to go because it's going to go blue anyway. So I don't see what's the point. Um, but my dad always told me like, well, you should still vote because because he came from another country and wanted that freedom. So he's like, well, you don't want to take that for granted. You definitely want to still voice your opinion by voting and vote for the propositions, the different stuff that's on the ballot, the local stuff that could take place. Because if you've seen everything that's gone on, you would definitely probably take a look at, well, do you like your local governor, or how they're doing on their job in that sense. So again, we'll see how things shake out. I don't know if it's going to be a lot faster process than the whole Al Gore, like the 2000 with Al Gore and Bush. But definitely interesting times. I would definitely say gotta be patient. Everybody needs to be patient in that sense. Again, I would say yes, we definitely need to count the votes. But there, like I said, another concern when I was watching and staying up that late was that, well, do we actually agree or thought there was something going on? Because um, I think of around 11:30 Pacific, I was watching with my wife, and the numbers, those there was Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, North Carolina, where else? Georgia, Arizona, Nevada. Where Nevada is where we live. It's like the numbers and counting stop all of a sudden. So that's where, and especially um, where Trump was up quite a bit on, especially yeah, some states he was up quite a bit. Um, Nevada, it started slowing down, but like early on when they were counting really fast in Nevada, I think it was at one point he was up only almost 71%, and we were wow, that's a surprise. But then it, before we went to bed, it stopped, and I think it was a lot closer. I can't remember if it was like around 55 to 60%. It was in the high 50s, but I think Trump was still up. Arizona, uh, again, they stopped counting, but and I think that's when Fox News declared that um, what's his name, Biden won, and so that's where it didn't make sense because yeah, he was up 300,000 almost at one point there, but then like I said, all the voting stopped. You would think if you have a job to do, you want to try to get the job done, to give credibility to, because like I said, if you're a Democrat or a Republican, whether your candidate was up or down, you would be suspicious. Like, why is everyone starting to stop at the same time? That was the odd thing as a viewer, and so that I haven't really heard a good explanation on that. Like, how can you all of a sudden stop counting, especially if you had some of these ballots supposedly sitting around and all that? Um, so it's like almost timing like, well, all right, guys, everybody needs to go home or something. Stop counting. Especially if unemployment is high at some states and some places. Just like seasonal work for the holidays, you would think they would have been prepared to have extra workers to be able to count. So that's why is it still take? I understand a mail ballot could take a while because you have to count by hand. But there has to be a better way. I feel like I think, especially all Americans are kind of stressed, anxious, and try to figure out who won and all that. I just thought that was kind of unusual in that sense because whether it's your candidate or not doesn't matter. You just want to see the right person win. Just like in 2016, some question if Trump actually won or if there was anything going on then. It's the same thing. I just like every football match, basketball match, any sporting event, you want to know the right team won fair and square. That's what it should always come down to. Um, and then whoever wins, that's our president. That's who we're going to be supporting for the next 4 years because obviously that's the great thing about our country. Everyone had their chance to voice their opinion fair. And did it the right way by voting. But again, I just feel like it has to be a unanimous thing. How it needs to be. Like I heard different states like Pennsylvania, and then you had I think North Carolina said you could wait a couple days even without a stamp. So it's like, all right, and again, you could be either party. If you don't need a stamp and postmark, wouldn't that be like saying one party could be still voting or turning in their ballots? So it's like, how do you stop that from one side? So it's kind of interesting, in that sense. I just thought we just want to have it fair for everybody, and that way, because again, you don't know what's really true out there. And the context is very important because I've seen some videos like they're saying, well, this one could be voter fraud, but then there's really no proof in that sense. Like, what's your um, and then it's the same thing. I've heard one where very interesting. Like one candidate could have had 100,000 votes all of a sudden, but then had no votes for this other candidate. That's 100% mark if that in that short period of time, if someone counted and said, "Oh yeah, this candidate has 100%." Or 100,000 votes in that short period of time. That's what we counted, but not the other candidate. Um, I don't know if maybe you guys could tell me. Have you ever seen any place where not the other candidate even got 1%? I could be wrong, but 100,000 votes for one person for that short period of time. It's pretty interesting if that is a claim that's true. That's kind of hard to believe. I feel like just doing the pure math, like I said, where supposedly one candidate got 100,000 plus votes in, I think, an hour counting, and then the other candidate got zero. Um, so it's almost like saying, wow, that candidate must be popular than Obama. Um, and like I said, the numbers a lot higher. I think I've touched everything I thought of with everything going on. Uh, and then Nevada's still trying to figure it out. It's going to be probably the closest race, like I said. There's a lot of, and I wonder if they're going to have recounts because I heard that maybe you guys could comment if that is correct. That if it's within 1%, they're supposed to automatically recount. So that could be a lot of recounting too. So that could be another waiting period. Um, so yeah, hopefully, let me know what you guys think. Do you guys feel the same way? Like I said, just try to not focus particularly on one candidate, but if you're putting yourself in that shoe, do you really believe that's even possible? Because like some of the stuff thrown out there, again, you definitely want to do it right. Make sure every voice is heard. Count everything correctly, but it has to just be done correctly. Where there was rules put in place. I feel like in different states, it seems like again it goes back to the pandemic. Different governors how they handle things, and unless that's how the voting process works, but I always thought maybe it was just done differently this year because of the pandemic. So they wanted to give every option and possibility. So yeah, so I don't know, but I'm not surprised. Like I said, I would have not been surprised if Trump was up and it was very close. I would have not been surprised Biden was going to lawyer up, and I'm not surprised that Trump is lawyering up. So that's why I don't think any of us should be that surprised. That's why for if everyone wanted to get it done pretty quick, I think if you're in that camp, then you probably want whoever you vote for to win by a landslide. There's that possibility, I think, still, that it could still be a 269. So that could be another interesting scenario. I think it is the House that decides the president, and then the vice president, and then the Senate decides on the vice president. So that would be interesting too, because I think the House could be controlled by the Democrats, and then the Senate could be potentially controlled by the Republicans. So you could have, I believe, what's the name, Biden as president, and then Pence. So that could be another scenario if I believe you have to have a 269 electoral vote. again, I've seen people talk about we should get rid of the electoral vote. I have no problem with the electoral vote. I think it's because the way it was designed, and it totally makes sense, is that um, if we had the popular vote, you're just going to have the state I used to live in, California, New York, certain really high dense areas or cities that's going to win the election that way. So, like I said, I'm more for equality and want to make sure everybody had their chance to vote. That's why they do those census. Supposedly, if you have now more high populations. So, example, I wouldn't be surprised over time, like Nevada here, could get more electoral votes because they could be getting. They've been growing more here, so they could potentially get more people from California, New York, or Texas, different places. Because, like I said, this is a transplant city, so definitely a melting pot. So you could definitely get more electoral votes here and then take away certain cities. So that's where it kind of, or states, and that's where I feel like it's pretty fair if you think of it that way. They're going to have the same amount of electoral votes. It just depends on the population of the state. So I have no problem with that. And if you do have a problem, like I said, that's fine. If you disagree with some of the things I'm throwing out there, that's fine. Um, just put in the comment and let me know why you feel that way. And that way I could hear you out. Because, like I said, on my Facebook feed, all you see is like both sides, where it's pretty extreme, I would say. Like, they would be like, well, I don't know. I'm pretty sure you guys probably see it on your feed too, on your social media feed for both sides. Usually, like I said, I don't comment to those because it's not going to be constructive, however you feel. So, because it seems like it's more of a shouting and disagreement instead of like listening to both sides. Um, so, yeah, definitely appreciate, especially if you guys stuck around this whole time with my breakdown and different thoughts and process. Like I said, I haven't done any of these videos for a while because everything going on. But again, I should be posting more. So go ahead and comment, go ahead and like, go ahead and subscribe. So that way, like I said, I'm trying to grow this channel in different ways and see if this is more stuff that you guys want to see. Go ahead and hit that thumbs up so that way more people could see and share and see if we could grow and not be so divided in that sense. Definitely appreciate if you guys stayed again that long, and hopefully you'll take the opportunity to subscribe to my channel, and appreciate it. Have a good night.